Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Najihah binti Adib and today our presentation will be on British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad and Carimin Petroleum Berhad. British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad is the most developed tobacco company in Malaysia. This company was established in 1912 and the company's legacy spans more than 100 years. They are primarily engaged in the manufacture, importation and sales of cigarettes, pipe tobacco and other tobacco products. Among their clients that they work for includes the world-famous business leaders such as Pall Mall, Rossmann and others. The company has been listed on the Malaysia Stock Exchange since 1961. The next one is Carimin Petroleum Berhad. Carimin Petroleum Berhad evolved into becoming one of the pioneer Bumi Putra companies that provides technical and engineering support services in Malaysia's oil and gas industry. Besides, Petronas, Carigali, Shell, ExxonMobil and Repsol are among their clients that they work for. This company was established in 1989 and was listed in Bursa Malaysia on 10 November 2014.
For the liquidity ratio, it is shown that Carimin has a better for both current ratio and quick ratio compared to British American Tobacco. It means that Carimin reflects a better ability to fulfill its short-term obligations. A lower current ratio of British American Tobacco might be due to a sharp rise in short-term debt without a significant increase in short-term assets. From the calculation of activity ratio, we cannot determine which company is better for inventory turnover ratio and average age of inventory ratio because Carimin does not have any inventory due to the nature of its business. In general, a higher turnover of inventory means that inventory is effectively sold by a company. On the other hand, British American Tobacco has a better ratio on total asset turnover and average collection period. This means that British American Tobacco is efficient in using its total asset because it can generate RM 2.44 for every ringgit Malaysian in total assets. Furthermore, on average, the company only takes 59 days to receive payments it is owed from their clients or customers. This indicates that British American Tobacco is efficient in collecting the money to cover its expenditure with a difference about 8 days ahead compared to Carimin. It is shown that British American Tobacco takes on average 36 days to pay its vendors for purchases made on credit, and this ratio also cannot determine which company is better because Carimin does not have any purchase of inventory due to the nature of its business.
Thank you, Wani. Moving on, I am Aisya and I will explain on profitability ratio. From the table, we can see that British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad or BATM has a better profitability ratio, which means that their ability in generating earnings and increasing shareholders' value are better compared to Carimin Petroleum Berhad. In terms of profit, for every 1 ringgit of sale, the ATM managed to generate around 29 cents of gross profit, 19 cents of operating profit, and 14 cents of net profit, while Carimin only generate 11 cents of gross profit, 7 cents of operating profit, and 6 cents of net profit. Next, there is a major difference in the company's EPS, which are 121 cents for ATM and 11.7 cents for Carimin. Besides, higher ROA of the ATM, which is at 33.62%, implies that the company is more efficient in utilizing its invested total asset in order to generate profit compared to Carimin. Lastly, the ATM has a higher ratio of ROE, which is at 89%, while Carimin only has 70%. These numbers suggest that the ATM is doing a lot better in producing income from invested equity compared to Carimin. Thus, analyzing the ratios for both companies, it is acceptable to say that BATM's ratio are more favorable by their stakeholders compared to Carimin's.
Market ratios relate to the firm's market value and is measured by its current share price. Price-earning ratio allows investors to evaluate the two companies' earnings in the future. The higher the price-earning ratio, the higher the investor confidence. In this case, the price-earning ratio for Carimin is higher than BAT and hence is preferred. Market book ratio measures a company's value by comparing a firm's book value to its market value. Carimin's market value is higher than its book value per share, thus it is considered as overvalued, means that the company has performed well. Unlike BAT, its market value is less than its book value per share, thus is considered as undervalued, which means that it is a bad investment from the investor point of view. Leverage ratio is used to determine the company's ability to meet their financial obligations. Generally, a high leverage ratio may be unfavorable. For leverage ratio, Carimin has a lower and preferable ratio. For BAT, every RM1 of its asset is financed by 62% of their debt, while only 56% for Carimin. Carimin also performs better in debt-to-equity ratio. Higher debt-to-equity ratio of BAT indicates that the lenders have contributed more in the business operation, as they have used RM1.65 of debt for every RM1 of equity. For interest coverage ratio, both companies are at a desirable level, as both of them are above 1.5. They're able to meet their interest expenses obligation without any problems. However, BAT scored significantly better.
So, does Carimin Petroleum Berhad comply to MCCG 2017? So, according to Carimin Petroleum Berhad's Annual Report 2019, Carimin does achieve the first intended outcome of MCCG 2017 as it complies to all listed practices. It is headed by a board that takes responsibility in leading the company and is jointly responsible in achieving the company's goals and objectives. Moreover, Carimin does achieve the second intended outcome, where the board has board charter which is periodically reviewed and accessible in the website. So the review of board charter is to reflect any changes to the compliance requirement in regards to the latest regulatory framework. Thirdly, Carimin also achieved the intended outcome 3.0, where they ensure that good business conduct, integrity, and fairness is implemented. Moreover, Carimin also implements whistleblowing policy, where the employees can express any concern or improper conduct to the channel provided.
My name is Fatin and I will continue explaining on the compliance of Carimin Petroleum Berhad with the other four intended outcome of MCCG 2017. So based on the slide, to obtain the fourth intended outcome, MCCG 2017 has outlined that half of the board should comprise of independent directors, and the tenure of such independent directors should not exceed 9 years. So as per the annual report of Carimin Petroleum Berhad, they did not fulfill the requirements of having half of the board as independent directors, but the company actually fulfilled the requirements of main market listing of Bursa securities, which require companies to have at least 2 directors or 1/3 of the board as independent directors. Moving on to the fifth intended outcome. So to achieve this intended outcome, the board, its committees, and individual directors should undertake a formal objective annual evaluation. So in the annual report of Carimin, it was explained that they had applied this guideline as the assessment of the effectiveness of the board and board committees and individual directors was conducted by looking at the attendance at the board and board committees meetings. So the sixth intended outcome stated that the company should have a nomination and remuneration committee that will carry out the duty of implementing policies and procedures of remuneration. So this was applied by the Carimin company, and moreover the NRC of the company is also in compliance with the guidelines of MCCG, as all of them are non-executive directors, and majority of which 3 out of 4 of them are independent directors as per the guidance of MCCG 2017. So the last intended outcome, so according to MCCG 2017, to achieve this intended outcome, companies are required to provide a detailed disclosure on a name basis for the remuneration of individual directors and the 5 senior managers. So according to the annual report, it can be stated that the company had provided a detailed name basis for individual directors, but they did not provide a detailed name basis for the senior management. As according to the company, this could lead to a competitive human resource environment and may raise issues such as recruitment and talent retention issues. Moving on to the next presenter.
Moving on to British American Tobacco and Berhad, they achieved the first intended outcome of MCCG. They have a board as head of company which act as the leaders and is responsible to meet all the goals of the company. They ensure all stakeholders' interests are protected and separated the positions of chairman and CEO to be held by different people. They also have a competent company secretary to support the board. Besides that, they have complied with the requirement of the second intended outcome where they put in place the BATM code as a board charter, and it is publicly available on their website. The board charter establishes the board members' roles and responsibilities and the governance structure. There is also a clear delegation of duties between the board members. For the third intended outcome, BATM has established several policies and codes to uphold the high ethical standards such as standards of business conduct, code of practice on sexual harassment, and policy on data protection. The standards of business conduct explains the measures on anti-bribery, corruption, conflict of interest, and whistleblowing, and these standards can be accessed through their website. Thus, the company complies with the practices of the third intended outcome.
Thank you, Tasha. Since Tasha already explained about the guidelines for the 4th until 7th intended outcome, I will continue with whether British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad follow the MCCG 2017 or not, and which companies is better in following the codes regulation of MCCG. For the 4th intended outcome, British American Tobacco fully comply with the codes regulation as stated in MCCG, where 57% of the board members was held by the independent directors and their tenure are not exceed of 9 years. Plus, 2 out of 7 directors of the boards are held by women, which are exactly 30% as mentioned in the MCCG. In contrast, Carimin Petroleum Berhad did not comply to this code. Next, British American Tobacco also followed the 5th intended outcome, where the board effectiveness assessment was done by peer-to-peer evaluation, performance review, self-assessment, and one-to-one interview session. The same goes to Carimin Petroleum Berhad. For the 6th intended outcome, it is the same as Carimin Petroleum Berhad, where the NRC of the British American Tobacco implement the policies and procedure for remuneration, including reviewing and recommending matters that relate to the remuneration of the boards and senior management. Lastly, British American Tobacco disclosed the details on the name basis for board's individual directors and the top 5 senior management, as required in the 7th intended outcome of MCCG, while Carimin Petroleum Berhad only disclosed the details on name basis for the individual directors. In conclusion, British American Tobacco are much better in following the codes regulation of MCCG for the 4th until 7th intended outcome compared to Carimin Petroleum Berhad.
As a conclusion, Carimin Petroleum Berhad reflects a better ability to fulfill its short-term obligations and debt obligations based on overall liquidity and leverage ratio. Besides, in terms of activity ratio, British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad is efficient in using its total assets and in collecting the money to cover the asset compared to Carimin Petroleum Berhad. In another perspective, ethical behavior, accountability, transparency, and sustainability are important in the governance of companies. Companies that embrace these principles and achieve most or all the intended outcomes mentioned before are more likely to produce a long-term value than those that are lacking in one or all. In this case, British American Tobacco Malaysia Berhad achieved all of the intended outcomes in terms of board leadership and effectiveness, effective audit and risk management, and integrity in corporate reporting and meaningful relationship with stakeholders. This concludes the focus of our presentation today, and that's all from us. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.